So, in a world that's getting more complex by the day, what's the one skill that's more valuable than, say, a high IQ or a fancy degree? Well, it might just be your ability to unlearn what you think you already know. Today, we are diving deep into the Cognitive Agility Blueprint. It's basically your guide to mastering the absolutely critical skill of rethinking.
You know, we all like to feel smart. We build up our knowledge like it's a fortress, right? But what happens when that fortress becomes a prison? The very beliefs we cling to the tightest, the so-called truths that might have even brought us success in the past, well, those can become our biggest blind spots. They can literally stop us from seeing what's right in front of our faces.
And believe me, the cost of being rigid can be huge. Just look at BlackBerry. For a while there, they were on top of the world. They owned the smartphone market. But then the iPhone showed up. And what did BlackBerry do? They doubled down on what they knew: physical keyboards, secure email. They chose this path of rigid defense instead of rethinking their entire strategy. And we all know how that story ended.
This really brings us to a powerful idea from the organizational psychologist Adam Grant. He makes the case that real intelligence isn't like a library of facts you've just stored in your head. No, it's a dynamic skill. It's all about having the mental flexibility to question everything, to unlearn, and to rediscover.
Okay, so if that kind of rigid thinking is the problem, what's the solution? Well, it's something called cognitive agility. And this blueprint, it's our path to developing that exact skill, which, let's be honest, is a must-have if you want to thrive in a world that's always changing. This visual really captures what cognitive agility is all about. See, it's not just about, changing your mind every now and then. It's about building a structured way to handle complexity. Think of this blueprint as a workout routine for your brain, designed to build up those mental muscles you need to adapt and evolve your thinking. All right, theory is great, but let's get practical. How do we actually do this stuff? How do we take this blueprint and put it into practice in our real lives? What we need is a system, right? A framework we can actually use day in and day out. So to really get a handle on the ideas in Adam Grant's amazing book, Think Again, we're going to use a really powerful framework. This was actually developed by Sir Abd Ali Shahid, and what it does is it organizes the book's key concepts into 3 actionable levels. It gives us a super clear path to follow.
So here's how the framework breaks down. It's built on 3 levels of mastery. First up, we're going to learn to think like a scientist. Then we'll move on to building what's called confident humility. And finally, we're going to master the art of persuasion. Let's dig into each one.
Level 1 is all about one crucial move: separating your identity from your ideas. See how in this visual, core values like integrity and curiosity are at the center, while your beliefs and strategies are on the outside? That structure is key. It lets you treat your opinions like hypotheses that need to be tested, not like sacred truths you have to defend. So if a hypothesis turns out to be wrong, you can just let it go. No identity crisis required.
Let's move on to level 2. Have you ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? It's this funny thing where, often, when our skill in an area is at its absolute lowest, our confidence is at its peak. This peak has a nickname, Mount Stupid, and it's a dangerous place to be because it's where we don't even know what we don't know. The whole goal is to get off Mount Stupid and find this amazing sweet spot called confident humility. This is the mindset you see in top performers. They are totally confident they can achieve their goal, but they're also humble enough to constantly ask, is my current way of doing this the best way? They're always open to better information. And now for level 3, mastering persuasion. Most of us think changing someone's mind is like a tug-of-war, right? A battle where we just have to pull harder to get them on our side. But that almost always ends in a stalemate. Real, effective persuasion? It's much more like a dance. You step back, you find some common ground, and you create an opening that naturally invites the other person to move closer to a shared understanding.
So, how do you do this dance? Well, you stop preaching. Throwing a dozen arguments at someone just gives them a weak point to latch onto and tear your whole case apart. Instead, try this. Present your 1 or 2 strongest arguments and then just start asking questions. Seriously, the best negotiators, they end about 20% of their statements with a question. It completely changes the game from a fight to a shared exploration.
Here's another key technique. We humans have this thing called binary bias. We tend to see everything as black or white, right or wrong. But that just forces people to get defensive. The better way is to use a complexity prism. When you show that an issue has nuance, that there are multiple perspectives, you create space for new facts to land. It lets people change their minds without feeling like they lost an argument.
Okay, so we've got these skills down to ourselves. But what about our teams, our organizations? How do you scale this up from just one person to an entire group? How do you build an engine for rethinking?
Well, it really comes down to two different ways of thinking. On the one hand, you've got a performance culture, like the one at NASA that tragically led to the Columbia disaster. It's all about results at any cost, which leads to a fear of punishment, so what do people do? They hide their mistakes. But on the other hand, you have a learning culture. This prioritizes psychological safety. It sees mistakes as valuable data, and it uses every error to make the whole system smarter.
And the absolute foundation of a learning culture, the bedrock on which everything else is built, is psychological safety. It's that shared belief in a team that it's okay to admit you don't know something. It's safe to make a mistake. It's safe to challenge the way things are done without worrying about being embarrassed or punished.
And this is where it all clicks together into this beautiful, powerful loop. When you have psychological safety in an organization, it gives people the freedom to have that confident humility we talked about. That humility then sparks curiosity and productive conflict, where you're debating ideas, not attacking people. And that, in turn, makes the group feel even safer. It becomes a self-powering engine for getting smarter together.
Okay, wow. We have covered a lot of ground. So let's boil it all down into 3 simple, immediate actions. What can you start doing like right now, the second this explainer is over?
Here they are, your 3 mandates. First, manage the self. That means separating your identity from your beliefs. Anchor yourself in your values, not your opinions. Second, influence the opposition. Ditch the tug-of-war and learn the dance. Ask more questions. And third, build the collective. Foster a learning culture where uncovering mistakes is rewarded, not punished.
Look, the ability to rethink isn't some fixed trait you're born with. It is a skill, and you can build it. The goal isn't to always be right, it's about getting it right. So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. What is the very first belief you're going to commit to rethinking after this? Drop it in the comments below. And hey, if you found this framework from Sir Abid Ali Shahid helpful for breaking this all down, definitely let us know that too.